When you watch pornography, the part of your brain that is activated in response to it is not the same part of your brain that fires in the act of sex or in the act of intimacy. So there's a center of our brain that is designed for responding to objects. So I see a cup sitting on my desk. If I'm going to grab it, it's going to require that part of my brain to activate and say, that is an object. You have a hand that can go pick that object up. That's how things work. That's how the world I talk about, our reality is literally experienced through the brain as the processor. Then in the act of intimacy, because we are wired for connection, there's parts of our being, like if humans were born and they were never touched, they would die. Literally, like you need connection with other human beings. So in the act of sex or in the act of intimacy, it's a whole different center of the brain that is being utilized. So what ends up happening as you're watching it is you begin to train and condition your brain to, when you see physical female body, that becomes an object. So you now begin to objectify people.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Superhuman Life. And guys, this week we have a very, very special episode for you. We're coming up on 100 episodes. I've been talking about it for a few weeks now, and it's a benchmark goal that we're coming up on hitting. 100 episodes, 100 of anything is something to be proud of. And yeah, I'm going to recognize myself a little bit here for the consistency of what we're doing here, for the growth, for the impact, so forth and so forth. So with today's episode, guys, we want to do something a little bit special with you. But before we do that, guys, let me remind you about who our sponsor here is at the Superhuman Life. We partnered up with an amazing company, amazing organization. But this episode is brought to you by Covenant Eyes. We love Covenant Eyes over here at the Superhuman Life and with the work that we're doing over at Rebuild Recovery. And I recommend them all the time. You guys have heard me talk about them before. Now, Covenant Eyes has been helping people for over 21 years overcome pornography through their world-class accountability software and very insightful educational resources. Covenant Eyes understands and believes that people find freedom through supportive and authentic relationships. And that's what we try to provide you here is a safe place where we can have deep, meaningful conversations, where we can have impactful conversations. But more importantly, you want to feel like you have support and you have community with us here at the Superhuman Life. Now, Covenant Eyes have been around long enough to know that porn affects everyone, not just the men, but it affects men, women, children, literally everyone. So if you're struggling with pornography, we have a message for you. You're not alone, and we are here to help. Both the Superhuman Life, our sister company, Rebuild Recovery, and then more importantly, our partnership here with Covenant Eyes. Now, what we've done here is we've partnered with Covenant Eyes, and we've created a special offer for all of the Superhuman Life listeners. We want to give you a free 30-day trial of Covenant Eyes by using the code SUPERHUMAN, that's one word, SUPERHUMAN, at checkout. Now, you can visit the link that's in the show notes or in the description box if you're here watching on YouTube, or just visit www.covenanteyes.com and enter that promo code SUPERHUMAN at checkout to get your free month absolutely free on us. So guys, go check that out. Like I said, it's something that we highly recommend with our clients and students here. It's something that I've changed and my perspective on accountability softwares has evolved over the years. There was a time at one point where I thought that maybe you were weak if you had to rely on something like that. And I no longer believe that to be true. I believe that they're incredibly powerful tools if used in the right way. So go check them out, guys. Covenant Eyes, use code SUPERHUMAN for a free month on us here at the Superhuman Life. But today's episode, guys, what we're going to bring you here is we're going to bring you a guest appearance. So a few weeks back, or really about a month and a half ago, I was interviewed by a former guest that we had, Johnny Elsasser. We had Johnny on the show from The Art of Masculinity. But Johnny interviewed me for his podcast. And Johnny and I unpacked my story a little bit. There's going to be some of you guys that maybe have been around since the beginning. And if you've listened to episode 1, you know the genesis of ultimately what led us here to creating this. And then that's evolved, and obviously we've grown the mission. Some amazing things have happened. We started a company out of this. But Johnny and I unpacked that a little bit deeper. So for those of you guys that are maybe new here, maybe haven't heard that entire story, this episode is going to be for you. Now, we also get into some real practical applications on how to live a porn-free life. We talk about the psychology behind porn addiction. We talk about the impact that it's had on the brain. We talk about the impact that it has on relationships. These are things that, I've obviously addressed pretty heavily with multiple guests here on the show, with some of the solo episodes that we've done, and then also all the content and videos that we shoot up on YouTube. But I just feel it was an amazing conversation, guys. I wanted to give you guys a little behind the scenes look at me. We get into some of my personal life as well, which, I share some things that I haven't shared really anywhere else. So it was a very fun conversation. I really enjoy speaking with Johnny. We've developed quite a friendship over the couple months of getting to know each other. And I'm really excited about, what the future holds for both of us. But I want to bring this to you guys. Obviously, like I said, as we're approaching 100 episodes, I want you guys to know what we're all about here, because we're doubling down on it. We're not taking the foot off the gas pedal. We're sticking true to the mission. We're here to help. We're here to support. We're really here to impact men's lives. So if we can play a role in that, whether it's through these podcasts on a weekly basis or it's through the work that we're doing at Rebuild Recovery, which I want to let you know we're incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to help and support you. But without further ado, guys, let's get into today's conversation. Living a porn-free life, guest spot on The Art of Masculinity with Johnny Elsasser. Hope you guys enjoy. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star rating or review. But enjoy today's episode, guys. See you on the other side. God bless you, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to The Art of Masculinity. Today's guest, we have Frank Rich on here. Just an amazing dude. He looks like, for anybody not watching this right now, he looks like a 70s wrestler with the stash and the frickin', he's obviously a jack dude, being former bodybuilder, still in shape. He's got the skullet going on. I fucking love it, bro. I love the whole vibe. The earring. Oh, dude, this is just epic, man. Epic. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. I'm saying I don't need pants on either, just so you know.
I wouldn't have it any other way, brother. I wouldn't have it any other way. That's the art of masculinity for you. Hang out with your wang out. Oh shit. Well, I love it, man. We always kick off things with the manly round. This gets the community to know you a little bit on a different level from most places. Probably some questions you haven't got. Are you ready to dive into the manly round, my friend?
I'm ready, man. This is exciting.
All right, brother. Your first question: what is your spirit animal and why?
Oh, lion. I mean, it's got to be, right. He's the king. He's the king of the jungle. He is. He just. This was shared. I'm in part of a men's group called Roar. And we meet every Saturday, 7 a.m. on Zoom, and then we do quarterly in-person meetings. And the founder, was very intentional in naming it. So, when a lion roars, it's claiming its territory. And I think all men are called to have a territory in this world that is theirs to claim. So I feel that the lion is my spirit animal, but it should really be the spirit animal of any men that is pursuing greatness in this world.
I love that. Yeah, man. And that's the thing is people that don't watch Nat Geo all the time. A lot of people think like the male lions hunt. That's the female lions, but the male lions protect the territory. Yes. They protect the pride. Yeah, so that's really cool, man. I love that. Good. All right, your second question. I'm excited to hear this one from you because I secretly want to know because you're just like a funny dude, but you're also like, I think you're really in tune with music. So what song, whenever you hear it, no matter where you are, do you absolutely just have to start singing along with?
Wow. Oh, man. It's weird because I've gone through this weird kind of musical journey over these last couple of years. I grew up. You made the joke about the '70s, stash, and I'm a big, tall white dude, but I grew up in like the West Coast hip hop era. So I was always like a Tupac, Biggie, Snoop Dogg fan. But these last couple of years, I began to look at music differently, and a part of it is due to the journey that I've been on, and my faith and my beliefs and worldview. So I look at music through a lens of divinity now. So I listen mostly to worship or gospel music, these days. But I want to give you an answer that, maybe, would actually answer this question. So what song, when it comes on, would I immediately sing? Wow, I'm literally stumped here, bro.
Bro, I thought you were gonna hit a home run on this one. I thought you were gonna
yeah,
have.
man.
I thought you had
I'm
one
sorry.
right off the bat.
I'm sorry. I'm disappointing you with. I'm really sorry.
No,
I'm
you're not
disappointing you with this
disappointed.
one.
No, we can circle back around. I'll give you a moment to think about it. We got
Yeah,
plenty of other questions.
if we're okay, yeah, man. I'm gonna have to come back to
We'll
that one.
circle back around. There's it's really funny. You talked about like Tupac and stuff. When my wife and I just flew to Peru and I watched that movie, it was like on the it's got Johnny Depp and Forrest Whitaker in it, and it was on the investigation into Biggie Smalls, like who killed Notorious B.I.G. Really cool movie, by the way. I thought they did a great job. Very interesting information. Oh, dude, check it out, man. It'll throw you for a loop because whatever information is in there that's like real, because they never solved the case of Tupac or of Biggie, I believe. I don't think either one of those got solved.
No.
It's very interesting. So if you're a fan of that genre and that era of music, that was a really cool movie to take a look at. Anyways, sidebar there.
I got it. You know what? Like, let's just put a bookend on this question because I'll think about it forever. I'm just gonna stick with the Tupac song, and it's "Dear Mama," and I think I selected that one because my relationship with my mom, outside my relationship with Christ, is the most important relationship in the world. And I'm not married. I'm still single. But I don't know. When I hear that song, like, obviously I didn't have, the childhood that Tupac did, so I don't resonate with the entire song. But when I hear it, I begin to understand what it means to be a mom and the sacrifices that they go through. And I live my life now with the intention of making my mom proud of who I am and the work that she's done. So yeah, probably a weird answer because it's a Tupac song about his mom. But I think it's, because we talked about honoring on my episode with you, and I try to live my life in a state of honor. So I think that would probably be the one if I had to pick one. But it was a tough question, man. So I hope that suffices.
Dude, that was great. And the extra, see, you showed up anyways. Look at that. That was great. And that's a great song too, man. And then that's just like an awesome explanation of why that song resonates with you. Really cool, brother. That's amazing. I love that you pulled that one out. Cool. All right. If you were a DJ, what would your DJ name be?
DJ Frank the Tank. That's an easy one.
Yes. I love it, man. Anybody that's old school fan. I love it. That is a good one. What is something that no matter who does it, they would just look absolutely ridiculous if they did it? Like, what's an action that if anybody like The Rock did it, he would just look ridiculous?
Another stump. I probably should have listened to a couple of your episodes before coming on here, so I was a little bit prepared.
No, man, this is the best. Organic is the way I like it, bro. This is what the community comes for.
What's that thing where people like try to lick their elbow? I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Like, I don't think it's actually possible, but people trying to lick their elbow. I don't know if you've ever, been in a group of people and they're like, "Oh, can you lick your elbow?" And you can't. I don't think you can do it. Like, so maybe that would be it. As I'm watching myself do it here in the Zoom, I'm like, "You look like a complete idiot." So there we go. People that try to lick their elbow look like a complete idiot.
Frank just did practical application for everybody watching this right now. So we can all agree that it looks ridiculous.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I love it. All right, your last one. If you could pull a prank on any well-known celebrity, alive or dead, who would the prank be on? And only if you know it, what would that prank be?
Ooh. Wow. Man, I was like a big prankster in high school too, man. We used to take people's cars and like park them across the street at the gym, and they'd get out of the locker room. They're like, "Where's my car?" I literally one time I took somebody's clothes out of the gym, out of the locker room, and they were standing there butt naked after getting out of the shower.
That's awesome.
Pull a prank on anybody alive or dead. Who would it be? I think I would prank my granddad, my dad's father, because he was kind of a prankster. And he passed, before I was like, not before I was old. I think I was, 9 or 10, maybe 11. So I didn't get to experience, like maturity, like adulthood, like being a man with him. But I know that he pranked, my dad and my uncles a lot, and probably even pranked us as little kids sometimes. So I think I probably maybe like to repay him a little bit with a prank.
I love that one. Repay him. we, dude, we used to have an uncle. He would walk around when we were kids, and some people are like, "Oh, that's fucking weird." He would just like pants us. It wasn't weird. It was like he was a prankster. He just walked around. You're like a fucking 5-year-old kid, and all of a sudden you're in your chonies.
Oh yeah, well that's probably me. I'm probably that uncle to my nieces and nephews. I'm the one that's like acts way younger than he really is.
Oh yeah, I love that, man. See, look at that. You did well, man. The family round is complete. I love it, Frank.
Awesome,
I love
dude.
it.
That's amazing, dude. Like that's some of the most fun I've had on. I mean, I've probably done 50 to 60 of these things in the last year. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, love it, brother. Cool. Well, we take the opportunity to give you recognition before the show so people know a little bit about who you are. But I always love that my guests really dive in for a second and explain a little bit from where you came from to how you are the man that you are today. A lot of stuff is in that story there, and we all don't start the way we currently are. So I'd love to have you share a little bit about that story for yourself, and so everybody can kind of listen to that.
Yeah. And at any point, if I just start going off on a tangent, reel me in. Because I do have the ability. All right. Yeah. I think probably, the easiest way to intro here is, I was a former bodybuilder. I've been an entrepreneur, since 2013. I've always pursued and been driven for more. My family, I come from, kind of a lower middle to lower middle class. Like we always kind of had enough, but never like all of it. If you kind of know what I mean. Like we never went without. We just never had like the extra. But from a very, very young age, like I was aware of like the separation. Like there were some that had, and then those that just kind of got by. But this wasn't something that was talked about or really shared in my family, or in any of my family. Uncles, we didn't sit around and talk about what do you want to do and pursuing these goals, and you can achieve anything you want if you really set your mind to. It's like, nope, you're just going to get a job like the rest of us and hope that you can land a great company and be there for 40 years and retire at 65 and then enjoy 10 years of your life if that's what you have left. But I knew from very young, like early teenage years, that I didn't want to go that route. I mean, I was, like you hear these entrepreneur stories, like lemonade stands, baseball cards, selling candy on the back of the bus. Like that was me, pushing a lawnmower around to make $200. I could go buy the latest Jordans. That's how I came up. So I got into sales and business, from a career perspective, very, very young. I was making six figures by the time I was 21, 22 years old. And because I didn't come really from that, and it kind of landed in my lap. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared. So, as somebody was making six figures, I thought that I had an unlimited amount of money. So I got into, quite a bit of trouble, in my early 20s from decision-making standpoint, just literally, $2,000, on a Saturday night at a club to try to, flex and act like had a lot more than I really did. I look back now and it's like six figures is not really anything, but I thought it was all the money in the world back then. So, in my early 20s, like I was already having problems with alcohol and drugs and sex. Like I just was this young kid that kind of had the world at his fingertips, so to speak, but I didn't have any kind of real preparation for any of that. Now, my 20s just kind of took me down this roller coaster. From a career standpoint, I would make some money, I'd lose it all. I'd land another sales job, I'd make some money, I'd lose it all. Because I had these vices, or I had these compulsive behaviors. I didn't really look at them as addictions back then, whether it was drugs, alcohol, but they were definitely something that if I didn't pay attention to it, could easily kind of take over my life. So I'm very fortunate that when I was 25, I started working 24, 25. I started working at a local gym here in Tampa, Florida. And I was part of the sales team that was kind of launching a new location. So once again, it was an amazing, paying job. But with that brought me into the world of bodybuilding. And that kind of changed the trajectory of my life for the next 10 years. Because I absolutely just fell in love with the idea of using training, using the weights, using the nutrition to create the body that, you wanted. You could literally, close your eyes and think about, what I want my body to look like. And in 16 weeks, you could attain it. So I spent, almost a decade as a competitive bodybuilder, while still, pursuing my career in kind of the corporate space, which I, like I said, I had success throughout my 20s from the career standpoint. And then when I turned 30, I made the leap into like real entrepreneurship. And that's when I started my first business. And that took off like right away. But with all this kind of going on, so literally like that entire 20s and into my 30s, I struggled with a really bad porn addiction. And like most men, I was introduced to porn at, 6, 7, 8 years old. I think the average age of exposure today is 11, and it's getting lower and lower every day. But there was nobody talking to me about it. There wasn't really any awareness around the dangers of it. And it wasn't really obviously a major problem back then because my introduction to porn was in a magazine. And then, when we were 15, 16, then we got the streaming internet. And then in the early 20s, we got smartphones and high-speed internet. And that's where I talk today. When I talk about pornography, I talk about the streaming internet part because I think it is a whole different drug. So to bring it back to kind of, my story, I guess, through that entire time of pursuing sales jobs, of landing, getting into bodybuilding, having some success there, diving deep into the personal development space. I read hundreds, not thousands of books throughout my 20s, trying to figure out like all these, life principles, all these success principles. With all that going on, I was secretly carrying this porn addiction like with me. So the world was kind of seeing like one side of success. I began to build a social media channel. I was, building an online fitness company at the time. But a lot of what I was sharing was the things that I was learning through personal development. But at the same time, it's like I have this secret addiction that I'm not even talking, I'm not telling anybody about. And then there's a series of events, around 2017, 2018, with me meeting the right people, with me getting in the right type of communities, with me being exposed to true successful men, men of faith, men of God. And then my life changed on October 22nd, 2018, when I was saved. And that kind of was the beginning of this new journey that I've been on. So, the first 34 years of my life, high achiever, athlete, great student. People told me like you can do anything in the world, like school, like you have all these amazing capabilities, but I always like had this like barrier, and it was my own self that would keep me from really hitting that major success. And then around 34, I get exposed to these new circles of people. I begin to see success through a different lens. I surrendered my life to Christ, and then 4 months later, I come face to face with the biggest, darkest secret that I've been holding forever. So February 14th, 2019, which is ironic that it is Valentine's Day. It's the day of love. I was in a long-term relationship at that point, and I'd already kind of been wrestling with the idea. I'd listened to a couple podcasts about it. I saw some TED Talk videos. I kind of starting to dive into the science of what's actually happening in your brain. And once again, just kind of by chance, I was in the right opportunity. I was at the right place at the right time. And I felt the calling at the moment that I just needed to share kind of, what I'd been wrestling with internally with somebody else. So this was after a workout with a very close friend of mine who's a Marine. He's a military man. We were just having a conversation, and out of nowhere, he brings up, the topic of pornography and his struggles with it. And, I look back now and obviously, I see God's hand kind of working in all of this, because had he not opened up, I probably wouldn't have said anything. But by him sharing first what he had struggled with, and it's something I highly respected. Like I said, he's a Marine. He served our country. He was in Iraq and Afghanistan. But for him to say, you know what, man, like I've actually had this issue and it's something I'm working through. It's almost as if like I now have felt the freedom to talk about my struggles. And the fact that I'd already kind of been wrestling with it internally, like it was fresh and it was there. So I told Zach that day, yeah, man, I've struggled with this for 20 years. And we had a deep, intimate conversation about it. And I told him right then and there that I was ready and that I wasn't going to allow it to be a part of my life anymore. And there were a series of reasons why back then. The reasons that I've remained clean have evolved and changed. But a lot of it was because I had an amazing woman in my life. And we had discussions about what future looked like. And if I was really going to pursue that with her, like she needed to know the truth. So that kind of began, this journey of me just kind of opening up and really sharing, my secrets and vulnerabilities. So the next day, when I returned home, I shared the whole story with her. I literally ended up like ripping a laptop apart right in front of her because I had a secret laptop that was only for porn. And I'm like, just so you know, like this is where I watch porn. I'm so committed to this. Like I'm going to destroy it. And right in the middle of the conversation, I pulled I literally ripped the laptop in two pieces. And then I went on, and I shared it with a couple of friends of mine. And then, the next 3 months, it's literally my world changed. What I began to see changed. And now I understand that there was all this kind of neuroscience stuff kind of going on behind the scenes, literally rewiring my brain, which is, a lot of the work that I do now. But when I got like 2-3 months, out of it, and I felt this sense of freedom and I saw the world differently and things became brighter. And it's like, then another call came. And it's like, okay, Frank, like, if you've been studying human performance and psychology and personal development and self-growth, and you've been able to achieve all the things you have, yet you still had this issue, imagine all the people that haven't studied everything that you have. What are they struggling with? How deep has it gotten for them? It's like, Frank, you just need to put this story out into the world. Like, not to try to sell anything, just share people what you've gone through, because you hold a level of authority. You have people that follow you. You have an email list of over 10,000 people that read your emails daily and then buy your fitness products. Like, you're an authority. So just share this and just see what happens. So this got us to the point where I launched the podcast. I've been running a fitness company at the time. I was working in a marketing agency. And the podcast started as really just kind of, really a passion and something I wanted to put my story out into the world. In the first couple episodes, I'm interviewing my friends like all podcast people do, talking about what they've had to overcome, because it started with my struggles with addiction. We went deep into a lot of different people's struggles with addiction. But what ended up happening, within the first couple months of the podcast, I was recognized by Apple. We knew noteworthy. Podcast took off like right away. It was amazing. But the messages that I started to receive from men, because like I said, I'd been an online fitness guy. Like I'd been helping people build bigger bodies, build bigger muscles, improve their squat, improve their exercise. So the messages changed from like, thank you for the fitness stuff. Thank you for helping me add 10 pounds of muscle, to thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for talking about this that most men aren't willing to talk about. So at first it was like a praise for what I was doing. And then quickly it was like, can you help me? And at this point I was like, I don't know if I can help you. Like I just was able to do this, through having the right people around me and understanding human nature and psychology. I was like, I don't really know. And then I was at a business event. This gets us to like early 2019, right before, or 2020, I'm sorry, kind of right before COVID kind of hit. I'm attending a business event here in Clearwater, and they're teaching a tactic, just to kind of test to see like if the people following you like are interested in what you have to offer. I say, hey, you know what? Like, I love what he's sharing here. I'm like, let me just take what he's teaching here and let me just see if people, would be interested in maybe a coaching program. I don't know what the coaching program is going to do. I don't know how long it's going to be, anything. But I just literally I'm sure anybody who's seen like those Twitter looking Instagram posts, I literally took that and I said, I'm looking for 5 guys that are tired of their secret with pornography. I'll personally coach you, send it. Within an hour, like $3,000 in my bank account. And that's when it was like, okay, Frank, like there's something here for you, like pursue this. So I left the marketing agency, literally walked away from a 6-figure position over there. Didn't fully shut down my fitness business, but took a lot of time away from it. And so I'm going all in on this. And this, this was right around the time that COVID like hit the world. So, I left a secure job to start a new business as the world was getting shut down. not a great piece of advice for people, but very fortunate it's worked out pretty well in my, my favor. But yeah, for the last, 16 months now, my primary focus every day has been helping men overcome their issues with pornography. So, we create a lot of great content, a lot of video content, obviously the podcast, we had Johnny on, we're still doing amazing conversations, but I've really been focused on understanding addiction, understanding porn addiction and what it does to the brain, what it does to the body, what it does to relationships, but then figuring out like, what are the solutions for men? And that's where I've now built a company, Rebuilt Recovery. We've taken, roughly 1,275 men in the last year through our courses and programs to begin to build a new life. Now, not every guy is like fully free. I've personally coached about 100 men, like in a one-on-one capacity. And a lot of those guys, like that's where the real success comes. Like when you get into a structured program, you get some accountability, you start taking steps. Like, and it's been amazing. Like obviously, I'm incredibly grateful and blessed just to have the opportunity to do what I do. But when I see these men's lives change over the course of 16 weeks, when I see them, rebuild their marriage or reconnect with their wife or just rewrite their own identity, how they see themselves. That's probably the biggest problem is the men that are struggling with this, like the view of themselves is so low that a lot of the work that we have to do is just kind of rewriting the identity at which they see themselves through. So yeah, I know that was long-winded. I hope it made somewhat of a sense. But I'm a recovering porn addict, former bodybuilder, entrepreneur, that's trying to change the world.
Yeah, brother, I love that, and I love your mission, and I love where you've been. One of the things I want to take us back through for a second, because I think so many guys, it's easy for us to run away from admitting that maybe we're addicted to porn, right? It's easy for us to justify how it's not an addiction because we don't truly want to see it that way. What does addiction look like to maybe a lot of the people you deal with, or even when you were going through it? What did that look like where you had to realize like, oh shit, this is actually a problem, like this is something that's controlling my life? How can we get guys to see what that picture looks like for some of the people out there?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say to any guy that his immediate response is, oh, I just watch it every once in a while and I'm not addicted. Great, stop. Go ahead and stop. And then call me in 2 weeks when you slip back and you relapse. So that's what most men don't even realize because they never actually even tried to stop. I haven't found one man that's just decided like one day I'm going to quit and then it's a simple, smooth ride. There's always going to be that relapse point. So I think that would be the first thing. If your response is, yeah, it's no big deal, I watch it every once in a while, then stop. Just stop for 90 days. And one of two things will happen. You'll either call me within the first 2 weeks when you slipped and relapsed, or you'll call me at the end of 90 days and report back, brother, my life is so much better. Thank you. So one of those two things will happen. I guarantee 99.9% of the men that would actually listen and do what I just said, that would be the end result. For me, I knew for quite a while that I had a problem. I think I was unwilling to face it. I've shared this and I'm very open with my own struggles, but you shouldn't be a grown man that's got to like sneak off, when he's in the mall with his girlfriend up to, the private restroom in Dillard's because you need 5 minutes by yourself when you're actually supposed to be, on a date. Like, so that was me. Like I would leave, I would be in public restrooms, like sitting in, the handicap stall because it's got a lot of room, and I'd be kind of quiet. If somebody opens the door, I'm like, shit, like, I got to close it down. So I think for me, like I knew for a very long time that I had a probably deeper issue than a lot of men. And I just wasn't willing to face it. And once I faced it, like I said, because I destroyed laptops, like I put my foot in the sand and said, I'm not turning back. And I think a lot of, some of the discipline and willpower and kind of some of the character traits that I had developed over bodybuilding really helped me in the beginning stages. And this is kind of something I've really come to a realization in these last few months. We've had to tweak some of our programs to actually bring in a lot more of the fitness side of things. Because what I was realizing is the men that were struggling through our programs lacked certain character traits. And I believe that a lot of those character traits are developed through a bodybuilding lifestyle, through denying yourself food when you want to lose weight. If you want to, transform your body, you got to, put yourself under a little bit of physical stress that develops discipline that develops willpower. You know, if you're going to transform your physique, you know, lose 15, 20 pounds, you got to say no to the cookie and eat the food that you know is going to be better for you, but maybe not taste as good. Once again, that's building character traits, discipline, and willpower. But yeah, to really answer the question, like what, you know, how does a guy know if he's addicted? Try to stop. And that'll smack you in the face very quickly.
What's some of the excuses you hear from guys when you're talking to them, or what's some of the excuses that you made to yourself to not actually take a look at the problem?
Everybody's doing it. You know, that's probably a big one. Oh, it's just, you know, it's just a normal thing. Every guy watches it. You know, oh, you're just hypersexual, or you have a real active sex drive. So that's another one. That's a false belief. Um, those are probably the two biggest ones. I mean, I could list a lot more of them, but I'd say those are probably the two biggest ones. Is everybody's doing this, no big deal, or yeah, I'm just hypersexual. So my girlfriend, she's not, so I need to do this, you know, or she wouldn't like me, or something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah, I could see those being like key ones, and I could also see like guys being like, well, you know, my wife's not giving it up, so you know, whatever, I may as well just do it. You know,
Yeah. Oh,
that would
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
I
yeah.
could hear
Yeah.
guys. Yeah.
And instead of, this is probably a lot of the work that you help guys with, instead of like looking at yourself and realizing like you're the reason that she's not wanting to have sex with you because of how you're showing up. So fix yourself and be a man. And then your wife will want to have sex with you. She'll want to give you sex. Instead, you run and cry like a little baby. You know, I have a friend. He runs another business, husband material. Calls it a pacifier. You know, porn is a pacifier. It's like you can't actually grow up and face your problems. So instead of like dealing with the life situations, it's like you run to your little corner and like you suck on your thumb like a little baby. And that's what it is.
I love that. Oh man. So I want to dive into this because you have such a wealth of knowledge because you've done the work on yourself. I want to start diving in now to the psychology and the science behind the effects on our brains on it. I don't think this gets enough recognition in society, and I don't think we really want to understand in a lot of cases. I don't think a lot of men who are really in this vicious cycle want to understand the negative effects. So let's go ahead and open the book for them. Let's have you talk about a little bit of the psychology, and then we'll dive a little bit into, okay, well, what's rewiring look like?
Yeah, and this is such an important, you know, part of this conversation, because in one side of, you know, the clinical world, you have, you know, therapists, you have marriage therapists, you have sex, you know, counselors and therapists that literally still to this day will prescribe pornography, you know, to a man or to a couple. Oh, you're having relationship issues, you guys should go watch porn together, because they think
Hold
that's a
on.
solution. Yeah.
Pump the brakes. That's fucking real?
For real. Yeah. I've
Holy
spoken with dozens of men that, you know, they're seeing counseling, they're seeing therapy either for themselves. You know, the ones that are seeing them for themselves are single men, and they go to their therapist. Oh, I had this problem with porn. It's not a real thing. Like, don't worry about it. It's normal. So you have part of the clinical world, and here's why: because there's this book called the DSM-5, and this is like the clinical like this is the clinical addiction Bible. Inside of the DSM-5, they have the list of every single addiction, the mechanism, what happens, what responds. They don't identify pornography as an actual porn, like as an actual addiction. So that's where like they kind of have like something to stand on, I guess, because clinically it's not accepted. But I've interviewed enough neuroscientists, like doctors, that are like, I don't care what the DSM-5 says. So that's where I've taken a stand. Is I don't care what this book says, because I've dealt with it myself, and I've obviously seen it play out in the real world. So, you know, it's interesting though, because like this has happened over time. You know, you go back into the late 1800s, if you went to the doctor with a sore throat, they prescribed you cocaine cough drops. Like literally, the cough drops would have cocaine in them. And then if you fast forward to the 40s and 50s, you would have, you know, Camel cigarettes. Like, this is Dr. X's favorite cigarette, or like there's even an advertisement of like the best cigarette for a pregnant mom. So science has always kind of been behind the curve. So we were promoting that parents should, you know, that moms should smoke cigarettes while they're pregnant. obviously we don't buy into that anymore. So when you say, scientifically or even the trust the science stuff, like science changes. Our understanding of things grow and evolve over time. So I think that's an important preface to put out there, because just because it's not accepted right now or it's not talked about doesn't mean that's not really a real thing. We obviously, we can look back in time and knew that it wasn't wise to tell moms to smoke while they were pregnant with their babies. We know that there was harmful side effects. So I think that's an important thing to say here. And this is also why I said when I talk about pornography, I talk about the internet streaming pornography. I don't care if you have a magazine. Well, to a certain extent, yeah, I do. But when I talk about the drug of pornography, I'm talking about I can go on the internet and within seconds, I can have access to an unlimited library of over 65 years of continuous content. Literally, just one site, I could sit there in 65 years. If I just watched every single movie, it would take me that long to consume every piece. And that's not including the millions of new videos that are uploaded every day. So that's an important part, because it's this infinite supply. Now, what happens, and this is where it gets really dangerous, is internet streaming pornography in the neuroscience world is what is known as a super normal stimulus. Stimulus being everything that goes into our body, whether it's something that we watch through our eyes, something that we consume through our mouth, something that literally just goes through our skin or goes into our ears. It creates a stimulus to our brain. Like that's how we experience the world, is through our brain. Like it's a filtration system. So when you watch pornography through your eyeballs, which are part of your nervous system, which is connected to the brain, you watch it and immediately it creates a super normal stimulus. So most people are familiar with the term dopamine, or you've probably heard it used before. It's a neuromodulator. It's a chemical that is designed to drip out as you're in the pursuit of your goal. So it keeps you moving towards pursuing your goals. So you get kind of a feel-good feeling as you're making progress on achieving things. What ends up happening with pornography, though, is a supernormal stimulus hijacks that center of your brain. And it creates this level of dopamine that you will not experience anywhere else in the natural world. So now, first, second exposure, you've now established a new baseline for dopamine in your brain. So what ends up happening is when you return back to the world and you start pursuing your goals, you don't get that same dopamine hit, because your brain is like, well, why would I give you a little bit of dopamine here when all you need to do is return back to that internet streaming stuff, and I'll give you this massive dose. And this is where you kind of create that sensitization, desensitization effect. Anybody that's ever done a line of coke knows that the first hit is the most amazing feeling. You'll never experience the sensation that you got the first time you did coke ever again, ever. I've done a lot of coke. I've actually never said that on a podcast. But that's and that's the problem, though, because if you have had issues with cocaine, you start chasing it. You start chasing where you go days and days and days trying to recreate that same high. It's the same thing with pornography. Now, I'm not saying porn and coke are exactly the same thing, but because you've established a new baseline in your brain, you're always going to seek getting that. Now, the problem comes is the first video that got you there will not get you there again. So this is where you begin exploring more hardcore, more extreme genres. Then you get into even darker areas where the porn even stops working. Now you're having to go into massage parlors, escorts. Then it goes even deeper. Now we're getting into a trafficking conversation. And I know I'm going a lot all over the place here. So dial me in at any point. But understanding, first, second exposure, the minute you watch pornography for the first or second time, you have changed the reward center in your brain. You will no longer get the same high feeling of pursuing your goals in the real world that you'll get from pornography. And that's where the addiction comes into play, because in order to get that feeling, I need to return back to pornography. And it becomes this weird kind of, odd balancing effect.
No, this is great, brother, because I think it bleeds into the conversation too, about how men go from, typically in long-term relationships, can go from emotional cheating to then physical cheating, because it's just that progression into that next step. And this makes a ton of sense. You're into porn, it hits those dopamine effects, it gives you that super high, but then all of a sudden you're no longer meeting that high with just watching videos. So now you start to go into a little darker nature. You start trying to find things that are maybe extracurricular to the marriage at that point, or extracurricular to the relationship, because no longer is porn sufficing to get you up there. So I love that conversation to open the door to the psychology of this, because those effects are what we're not recognizing. Those effects are what we're not realizing, the path that we're on. And then also, diving into this a little more, I'd love for you to speak on it, how are you hearing or seeing this affect relationships as well once they can't meet that high without going through porn?
Yeah. I want to circle back and add one thing because you mentioned psychology. I realized I didn't even really talk about it from a psychological perspective. I shared the neuroscience of it.
Yeah.
The psychology part comes into play is, first of all, every guy that's doing it, like we said, it's not a conversation that we're really having all the time. So there's always this kind of secrecy component. Well, if there's something that I'm actually going to do, but I'm not willing to talk about it, does that mean that what I'm doing, like there's something wrong with it? So we're having this internal dialogue, but yet you're seeking this out to get this feel good, to get this what you feel is a pleasure. So you're seeking that out, but then internally you know that's not right. So you're literally start having this internal battle, like cognitive dissonance. The behavior that I'm acting in is not congruent with the values at which I, see myself at. And that's where it really becomes like a psychological warfare in the man's mind, because he wants it. His body is telling him, yeah, he go gets it. And then the minute he's done, guilt, shame, like these feelings of like inadequacy, you're a loser, this and that. He just starts beating himself up. And that's a dangerous place to be in, of that self-sabotage, like no value in who I am. So I think that was an important thing to add as well. It immediately creates that level of cognitive dissonance inside of our own internal dialogue.
Absolutely, man. That bleeds a lot into what I teach men, but that creates, like you said, incongruency or inauthenticity with yourself. Yeah. So all of a sudden you show up a shell of who you truly are because you're not confident in who you are because you're lying to everybody. You're lying behind closed doors and you're keeping all that within. And then all of a sudden you're trying to be this person that people respect out here, like you were, you're trying to be this person of influence, but then in the shadows, you're not congruent with that. So that's always going to cause dissension within yourself. I love that you pointed that out. That's really, really good point there. So
yeah.
what are you seeing? What are you seeing in relationships? What are guys that are doing this? What's the typical experience of their relationships that you hear about and that you see from this?
Well, I subscribe to the philosophy, and I'm sure you do as well. Just a little bit I know about you. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you have a secret in one area of your life, if you're not sharing everything, then that's probably showing up in other areas as well. So for one, the man's self-value is or self-worth or self-confidence has just been shattered because of that conversation that we just had with that kind of internal battle. So he's not able to show up in the relationship as he needs to because the value of himself is so deteriorated. Like he just feels like he's a lesser version. He's got no real worth to the woman. And then the woman's side of things, that she's taking it personally, like, oh, he doesn't find me attractive. This is where I'm getting a lot, like, not an area that I feel super strong in speaking to females, but I'm exposing myself to some people, and I'm recruiting other people on my team to have those, because I think that it's important to tell women, like, it's not because he doesn't love you. It's not because he doesn't find you attractive. Like, I loved the woman that I was with. She was beautiful. She was gorgeous. Like, I wanted to marry her. I wanted to have a family with her. My problem was it was in my brain. It had been hijacked. I didn't even understand it. So the woman is dealing with this whole other battle where she's taking all this personally and she's not able to see it. So she needs to kind of have like some support and let you know, like, there's nothing to do with you. Like, your husband's not an alcoholic because he doesn't find you attractive. He's not a drug addict because he doesn't find you attractive. So I'm going to tell you, he's not addicted to porn because he doesn't find you attractive. That's not how it works. But yeah, I would say probably the biggest issue is the men just not being able to show up in the full manner and capacity that they need to, because I believe that pornography prevents you from fully being the man that you were created to be. You'll never have a successful relationship, just a fraction of yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of truth to that. And when it comes to that, relationship with a woman, it's you're always like you said, you're always seeking that high, being an addict to it. You're always seeking that high. And if you're not able to get it from somebody that you've been with for years, because that porn is what's spiking that dopamine for you, then yeah, you're never going to turn to them for like a positive sex life. You're going to think that you have to go to porn. Do you also think that it gives these guys a distorted picture of what their sex life is? Do you think it gives them a distorted picture of like, oh, my sex life isn't as good as like what it is in porn?
100%. Yeah, this is a great part. Great conversation to have here. 100%, man. Like, yeah. I just had this week's episode. I interviewed Joshua Broom. He was the 2012 Male Performer of the Year, formerly known as Rocker Reed. He's out of the industry. Pastor now, small church up in Ohio, huge anti-porn, advocate. But talking about, obviously his experience in the industry. Yeah, porn sex and real sex are not the same thing. Sex with a woman is something divine about it. I think that is first of all, that's like sex is for creation of human beings first and foremost. There's a pleasure component to it, but not at the level that we watch on the internet. I'll share a story with you. I heard there's a nonprofit organization called Fight the New Drug. Big awareness campaign. They don't really do any, they're not in the same space as me. They don't really do coaching. They more just kind of, share awareness on the dangers of it. I heard the founder of the organization give a talk at a conference. He shared a story of actually a family that he knew. So this family had I believe it was a 13, 14-year-old son. 13, 14, like you're probably, you're into girls, you're kind of interested. He was ready to have his first date. And the parents were like, yeah, you can have a date, but why don't you have her come over to the house? We'll set you guys up. You can sit in the car. So it'll be like a drive-in kind of movie date. Like, we just want you to be here at home. Good decision by the parents. Sure, we'll support you, but we want you to have you here at home. So that, the girl comes over, they get set up, listening to music in the car, in the driveway, whatever they're doing. Parents go inside. They're like, we'll just leave them, give them some time. About an hour later, they come back out. We just call the kid Johnny. Johnny is sitting in the driver's seat. He's got his hands wrapped around the girl's neck. He's choking her. Dad sees it, runs to the car, opens the door, pulls him out. What are you doing? Like, Johnny, what are you thinking? He's like, well, we're on a date. Like, isn't that what they like? So in his mind, because he had been exposed to the abusive nature of sex and pornography, he thought that a date was an opportunity for him to strangle a girl. Like, that is literally how he was processing all of this in his head. So I think that in of itself is the only example we need to be of. Is it distorting our perception of sexuality? Absolutely, from a very, very young age. Now, flip that to the female side of things. So you got the same age, you got the 13-year-old girl. Now she's exposed to it. And what she sees is that in order for me to have a man love me, he needs to choke me. He needs to spit on me. He needs to blast on my face. He needs to bring his friends with me, and they're all gonna. So that's what she's being warped into. We have to understand that everything we consume, everything from the day that we are born until the day that we die, everything that we consume, whether it's in our ears, we're talking about music. Music is an influence. The music that you listen has an impression on the thoughts that you will create later on. So everything that we consume into our heads has an impact on how we perceive things. So from a very, very young age, our children are being exposed to not a good example of what real sexuality is. A very dangerous example, if you want my opinion on it.
Yeah, brother. No, I'd love to hear that, because I can't say that I've never watched porn and act like I'm above everybody else, because I'm not. But I mean, at the same token, like I have a newfound awareness about it, and I honestly don't do it really at all anymore. But that's because of the fact that this kind of stuff has come out more often, and I've seen the picture, I've heard the stories from people like yourself and a few other people, and it's damaging to relationships. It's damaging to expectations sexually, and then if you're in a real relationship and you want to, and you guys are engaging in sex, why would you want that to be unfulfilling, right? Like, why?
Yeah. And John Eldridge has this amazing quote, Wild at Heart. I don't know if you've ever read it, but if you haven't, it's definitely put it on your list, because it's a book every guy needs to read. And in the book, he says, what makes pornography so addictive and dangerous is the fact that it gives the man everything that he wants sexually without requiring anything of him. Talked about the guy showing up fully as the man he was created to be in his relationship. The man has a job. in a relationship. He's got responsibility. He's got things that he's there: protection, service, providing. The protect, provide, preside. The order of man. Like I had Ryan on a couple months ago. I believe in all that. There are certain roles that we play within our relationships, and the minute the guy is not fully stepping into the role, but is still expecting to get everything that he should, that's a major problem. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm glad we're spending time on this today.
Wow, man, that fucking hits home. I love that you identified that, because yeah, there is, like, I always joke, my wife always jokes too, she's a fucking crock pot. It takes a lot of work to get her to that point, and not like work. I get the opportunity to give her the ability to be attracted to me and to want to have, a great, sexual encounter. But it takes time, it takes presence, it takes ownership of my actions and my words. It takes all of that for me and my wife to work together to have a beautiful relationship, a beautiful intimate relationship. And that what you said is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, isn't it kind of like what every man like deeply wants? Like, he'll tell you like, "Oh, I want the girl that's like it's going to be easy." Well, if she's easy for you, who else has she been easy for? Like, like your wife clearly, like, she has value in herself. Like, she values herself. She values her body, and she wants to make sure before she gives it to you that she can trust you. That's what the woman is doing. It's not that she doesn't want to give you. She just wants to make sure, because what she has is special. She knows it. So before she's going to give it to you, she's going to make sure that you are fully capable of handling it from a respect standpoint. So I love that, man. And I think if you really got a chance to like ask every man like deeply, like remove the ego stuff, like just sit down and have a real conversation, man to man. Nobody else will hear this. Would you rather your wife has slept with 100 women or 100 men or two? And I'm sure, that 99.999, 100% of them would lean towards the lower side.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most men would want that. But that's amazing, because like you highlight something here that really I don't think I've ever heard anybody really talk about, but it's this escape form of not escaping from yourself or anything, but it's escaping from doing the work that a relationship requires. And I love that you really highlighted that, because I've never heard somebody give that perception, because you're right. You get the fulfillment of like seeing the actions, but you don't have to do any of the work to get to that point.
Yeah, I feel it's always an escape. I have this trigger and I have this urge, and the only way I'm going to be able to fulfill it is by go looking at porn. No, sit in it, figure out where the trigger came from and why it's a problem, and then go and solve it. Don't run from it. Like, that is where that pacifier, comes into play. Like, I'm a little baby, I can't handle this. Boop, mom, sticks a pacifier in your mouth. Oh, my life is too hard, stress. My boss yelled at me. Wife rejected me, so I deserve this. No, brother, figure out why your wife rejected you and go fix yourself so it doesn't happen again. Oh, my boss, or I had a really stressful day because the clients are mad at me. Well, why are the clients mad at you? Because you're not doing a good job of providing a service for you. So go fix that. Stop running from your problems.
Absolutely, brother. That's so good. So,
dude, you got me so fired up today.
I love this, dude. I love fired up Frank. This is amazing, bro. This is what guys need to hear. I think there's a lot of excuses that we make as men for a lot of things in life, and I think porn is probably one of the biggest things out there that we make an excuse for. So, my question to you, and I think I already know the answer, but I kind of want to put this out there, because I did an episode really, really early on, and it was called like, "Is porn always bad?" And so let's give a scenario. If, for instance, and again, like I want to hear what you have to say on this, because I just would love to hear this. But say, for instance, you and your partner are watching porn together. Is that bad, or is that not bad? And is there, if it is bad, or if it's not bad, is there any instance in which you condone looking at porn at all, or do you feel like it's something that needs to be completely wiped away?
Yeah, well, because I've openly come out publicly and stated that my mission is to eradicate pornography from the world. Yeah, I'm very, very, very passionate on the one side of things. And I've shared my beliefs here. I put my faith out there. I'm not going to be one of these people that like, oh, it's bad because it's a sin, or oh, it's bad because the Bible tells it. Yeah, I can go down that route and we can have that discussion with the people that want to have it, but that's not where I try to really come from in my role, because not everybody resonates with that, and that's okay. Here's an important thing to know, because you talked about what if we're watching it together. When you watch pornography, the part of your brain that is activated in response to it is not the same part of your brain that fires in the act of sex or in the act of intimacy. So there's a center of our brain that is designed for responding to objects. So I see a cup sitting on my desk. If I'm going to grab it, it's going to require that part of my brain to activate and say, that is an object. You have a hand that can go pick that object up. That's how things work. That's how the world I talked about, our reality is literally experienced through the brain as the processor of everything. So we have a part of our brain that identifies objects. That's what it's for. I can pick it up because I have a hand. Then in the act of intimacy, because we are wired for connection, there's parts of our being, like if humans were born and they were never touched, they would die. Literally, like you need connection with other human beings. So in the act of sex or in the act of intimacy, it's a whole different center of the brain that is being utilized. So what ends up happening as you're watching it, outside of the supernormal stimulus, is you begin to train and condition your brain to, when you see physical female body, when you see a person form, that becomes an object. So you now begin to objectify people. So when men talk about, I sexually objectify every single woman, because you've trained your brain that the physical body of a person is an object. It happens for women just the same. So I don't think that there's any benefit to a couple sitting down and watching pornography together, because all they're doing is they're training themselves together that when they see people, that people are objects. You want to explore sexuality together? Get a book, read the book, have a conversation, sit in a room without any external stimulus and look at each other in the eyes. Like connect with the soul of another human being if you want to explore your sexuality together. You don't need something from the outside to create deeper intimacy, deeper connection between two human beings. If anything, it's doing the complete opposite, taking you further and further away from each other.
I fucking love that, man. I love that you're putting the science behind it. That's where I think it really hits home for a lot of people. So everybody listening right now, like really take stock in what Frank's saying, listen to how he's presenting this from that scientific standpoint to really validate his perception of what porn really does to us, and be aware of that. Like that is truly powerful, brother. And I appreciate that's where you come from. One more thing, and then I want to dive into what you got going on, how you're supporting men, and where people can find you. But one of the other things is, what is maybe one or two of the biggest tools that you can give men right now who are ready to start making their way out of the porn addiction or porn watching?
Yeah, the first thing every guy is going to need is he's going to need support, community, accountability, a coach, a mentor. You need another person in your life. You will not go through this on your own. So find a mentor, find a close friend. Your accountability is not your wife. That is not her role. That is not her responsibility. Do not put that pressure on her. It's not your girlfriend's job. It's got to be probably should be another guy. I mean, you can seek out a female professional, maybe therapist, counselor, coach. But for the most part, it's going to be a guy. So I think the first tool you're going to need is you're going to need some type of accountability system to be in. We have those tools, we have the solutions. Like I said, you don't need to get involved. Get into a 12-step program. Get into a small group at a church. Just get around other people, other men that are having deep, vulnerable conversations. And then the second tool that probably could really help every guy is a piece of paper and a pen, and just spend some time journaling. I have a saying, like I tell my guys at the end of every night, we have what we call the daily reflection journaling. Just spend 5 to 10 minutes every night. And it's simply thinking about what you're thinking about. We get 50, 60,000 thoughts every single day. Many of them are not true. Most of them we don't remember, but very few people actually spend time every day thinking about what those thoughts are. And if we understand that our actions, our habits are driven by our thoughts, and our thoughts are obviously dictated by our influences, so we got to cut off the consumption, but then start paying attention to what you're thinking and get underneath the thoughts. Like why am I continuing to think this when I know it's not true? And over time, you'll begin that rewiring process. But if you're going to rewire things in your brain, you got to get inside of there and become a mechanic. So that would, that would probably be the best too, is get into some accountability system or some group of, other men that are having conversations, whether one-on-one or in a group. And then spend some time writing your thoughts out on paper. Don't type them, because the act of writing requires a different part of your brain to activate. And most people these days don't really write. So it's going to be challenging. And through the act of doing challenging things, you'll begin to rewire new neural pathways in your brain. So I think, that would probably be the best too.
I love that, brother. I love giving practical tools, and those are really, really good practical tools for guys to use. So I appreciate that. Well, brother, I could talk to you all day. As you know, man, we jam out and have a fun time. This has been an amazing podcast episode. I love the light that you're shedding in this world. Tell us where we can find you, and tell us what you got going on right now that we can follow you, support you, or even get your help in our journey.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Obviously, anybody that's still listening, now you guys are, if you enjoy these, long form podcast style interviews, I have a podcast where 90 episodes in at this point. It's called The Superhuman Life. We had Johnny on it, a couple months ago, amazing episode. Going deep into, masculinity and writing your blueprint. We've had some amazing people on. I mentioned Mickler of Order of Man. I'm interviewing Waylon of Lions Not Sheep tomorrow. I've had some of the world's leading neuroscientists, Dr. Caroline Leaf, really diving into. So everything I shared today, I don't just make this stuff up. I interview way smarter people than me, and then extract what I can remember and make it my own. But yeah, check out the podcast, The Superhuman Life. My company is called Rebuilt Recovery. And, you can find us online at rebuiltrecovery.com. I do have a YouTube channel that is probably the best place. Like if you're just looking for real actionable, steps and tips. So I release a daily video over there, Monday through Friday. And, those are somewhere between 7, 10, 12 minutes long. 3 tips to do this, 5 strategies to handle trigger, real actionable stuff. And then if you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's at the Superhuman Frank. And anybody that is maybe, kind of this is an issue in your life and maybe kind of exploring some options as far as help. I have a free book. It's called The 7-Step Guide to Living Life Without Porn. It's 100% practical. It literally is these 7 steps. If you follow them and execute upon them every day, you will live a porn-free life. So you can get that at the7stepguide.com. And 7 is spelled out. So the 7 SEVEN stepguide.com. And I'm sure you'll link all that stuff down in the show notes.
Yeah, brother, we're going to put all this stuff in the show notes for everybody. So if you didn't get that down, don't worry. Go check out the show notes on this episode, and we'll have all that linked for you. What is recovery or rebuild and recovery? What are you guys doing as part of that program?
Yeah, so for the last year, we've had the book, the 7-Step Guide, and then our coaching has consisted of basically one-on-one, in a one-on-one capacity. So you work directly with me. We've just finished 2 new courses and programs. One of them is a 16-week challenge that is starting in a week from now. It's called Quit Porn and Get Ripped. So this came, like I was sharing at the beginning, I kind of spent the last couple months really evaluating the success and what was separating the guys that were really, winning in the program and those that won't. And it came down to those character traits and belief system. They either lacked one, and most of the times they lacked both. They lacked the belief that they could actually do something because they tried and failed so many times. And then they lack the character traits, with that being discipline and willpower. So bringing the fitness transformation side into things. So it's a 16-week challenge that we're doing that is driven through a physical transformation while we work the rebuilt curriculum along the way. So we kind of kick it off with changing our bodies, and then we bring the recovery piece along the way with it. So that's what I'm really excited about. That's kicking off in a week. And then that curriculum that I've, worked one-on-one with guys, tweaking it, perfecting it. We've just built it into like a training system, like a membership area where like, you don't need, weekly calls. You don't need to check in with me. Like everything is literally delivered to you on a week-to-week basis. So every week you get a new series of training videos, the curriculum, the worksheets. There's a meditation breathing component inside of there. We have an FAQ section with a great friend of mine, Dr. Trish Lee, who answers a lot of the science questions. We have relapse tools, what happens when you're triggered. So yeah, those are the two most exciting things. But yeah, I mean, it is our mission, like I said, to eradicate pornography from the world. So a long way to go, but we're just getting started.
Well, brother, it's super inspiring. You've inspired me, and I hope that people listening are inspired to start dropping the porn and start living life and start living a life connected with themselves and with their partners, man. This is a beautiful mission. I love that you're sharing this with everybody. I love that you're out here so passionate about it. You've lived it, you've learned it, and you are changing lives left and right, brother. So thank you for how you show up on this planet. My last question for you before I release you back to the normal world is, what does the art of masculinity mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's being the man you were created to be. Not being a slave to your flesh, slave to your thoughts, like owning your territory, claiming your territory, and then doing everything within your power to share what that territory is and can be with the world.
I love that, brother. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Frank. You've been amazing on here, as always, a wealth of knowledge. Just like you, I bring on smarter people than myself so they can speak to topics that I can't. And
we'll have to listen to those episodes. I'll have to come back and listen to those episodes. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, thanks, Frank. All right. And to everybody listening, as always, remember to drop the ego and stay humble. Until next time, guys.